episode of Death Parade, the Quindecum Bar has two brand new participants, the hard-boiled detective Tatsumi, and Shimada, the young man who's working his ass off so that he can support his sister. This week's episode is insane, and that's because there's no resolution for it whatsoever. This is going to be the very first two-parter episode of Death Parade. It ends with zero resolution, and I still don't really even know what's going on in this story. But at the end of last week's episode, this one was already getting built up and teased because Nona had these two people who were going to come into the Quindecum Bar, and they were meant to be for specialized arbiters. And despite the fact that Decum himself is an arbiter who's infused with human memories, I don't think he's even prepared for this one because the two people are coming in. One of them is a killer. And there's even more of a twist to this. I'm going to go ahead and give it away right now. If you haven't watched this episode, go watch it right now. At the very end of the episode, they reveal that both of these guys are killers. However, we do not know why they are killers yet. So let's just talk about each of the opponents. First, let's talk about the younger guy, Shimada. He seems like the most obvious at first because earlier on in the episode, he has this little backpack and inside of it is a bloody knife. And early on, you see one of his memories where his sister is crying right in front of him and he's freaked out and he's promising that he will protect her just like mother and father. My first thought was maybe he actually murdered the mother and father. Apparently, that's not the case. Apparently, his sister had this stalker who was constantly going after her, and I'm guessing Shimada had no choice but to actually kill this guy. Whether it be in cold blood or maybe he was protecting his sister when it happened, it's kind of hard to say. There is a part of the episode where his memories do return, and there's a scene where he comes home and his sister is completely beat up. I imagine this is something that probably sent him over the edge, and this is when he just snapped. And that brings us to Tatsumi, the hard-boiled badass detective. This guy is awesome, and he's a lot harder to read than Shimada, and that makes sense because he himself is a detective. He's supposed to be able to sort of read everyone perfectly, and he can already tell, like, as soon as he comes into this place for the first time and he meets Decum, that he knows something's not quite right, especially because Decum himself doesn't seem to have any emotion whatsoever. But as they start playing the game, their memories start coming back. It is also worth mentioning that the game in this week's episode is air hockey, and it's pretty much following the standard rules of air hockey and of Death Parade, where each of the pucks actually have like a corresponding body part or an organ, which will become much more crucial later on in the episode. But as the episode is going on, Tatsumi is slowly starting to get his memories back, and you can see that he had a wife who apparently was killed, and then he became completely obsessed with finding the killer, and apparently he did find someone and murder them, although I don't really know where that is because there's all of these fuzzy memories. Decum himself is actually going to have to judge two people who have actually murdered others, and that's pretty interesting. Whether it be through self-defense or not, it's a really tough call to make. I mean, that's like a life-altering decision right there, and just the fact that the black-haired woman even wants to see these memories as well is pretty amazing, and even by the end of the episode, she gets to see them, and they're just messed up. They completely floor her. She hits the ground. She doesn't even know what to think, and that's when you realize that there actually is two killers here, and I almost thought at first that maybe these two could be related somehow, like Tatsumi and Shimada have a relation, because there is a scene where Tatsumi is looking over all of these photos, and there's this one picture of what looks like a student, and he has a backpack on. Very similar to what's going on with Shimada right here. I don't know if there is going to be a clear-cut connection, but I really just can't wait to see what kind of a bombshell of a revelation this episode is going to have. This one here is just really building up the mystery, and as the episode was going on, I'm like, wow, they're really taking their time with this one, and by the end of it, even Decum himself said that, and that's when they had the up the ante of the game, and that's when you realize, holy crap, the episode's over. We're going into sudden overdeath here. We're gonna have to freaking see what's gonna happen in the next episode, and that's never happened in Death Parade. I cannot wait to see where this is going. So, what's the rundown? On this week's amazing episode of Death Parade, it was so annoyingly tense. This was the most tense game of air hockey I think I've ever seen. The air hockey, really, all the part with the game and everything, that sort of took like a whole backseat to the real mystery and intrigue of these two characters, which I can only make speculation at this point because what they've shown us of their memories is completely fragmented and real, like, sort of scratchy looking. You don't get a really good view at it. It's pretty clear that someone is killed in these backstories in some sort of, like, weird backwoods warehouse area, but you can't see who the killer is. It's so mysterious. I don't know what's happening. It just really makes me want to see the next episode of the series. Otherwise, the thing that's really interesting about this one is that the black-haired woman is getting more directly involved, and she even asks for Deckham not to use the remote control in this week's episode because there's a killer involved. Things are already pretty freaking extreme already, there's no need to do that. On the technical side of things, animation, artwork, atmosphere, music, voice acting is all amazing, just as it's been in the rest of the series. I especially loved the design of the air hockey table. Gotta be the most freaking just metal air hockey table I think I have ever seen. Just so cool looking. I want that in my freaking basement. But this was a surprising episode of Death Parade. I never thought that there was going to be like a two-parter episode, or at least one that's going to have to lead into the next one, because most of the other episodes have been completely singular with the characters they've introduced and the concepts, and this one is really mixing things up quite a bit. So I can only highly recommend this to people who've been watching the Death Parade anime series, and if you haven't watched Death Parade, watch it. It's amazing. It's one of the most well-written, intriguing shows I've seen in quite some time, and I cannot wait to watch next week's episode because I'm sure it is going to blow our minds. Check it out. This week's episode is a 5 out of 5 from me. Another amazing episode from this amazing anime series. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and like the video. And before you leave, please tell me what you thought about this week's episode of Death Parade. Please tell me your comments and your thoughts and your theories about what's really going on with Tatsumi and Shimada in the comments section below. Do you think they actually have some sort of connection? Do you think one of them actually killed in cold blood and is actually just a real freaky murderer? Or do you think there's some other circumstances to the fact that these two have actually killed people? Remember to tell me in the comments section below, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Follow us on social media like Facebook and on Twitter, and make sure to also check out our brand new podcast show, The Powerful Nerdcast. It's a brand new video podcast series. It's really awesome, and you should totally check it out in the description box below and at the very end of this video. Thank you guys for watching. Super Kami Guru 9000. Out.